Well, not on. Sorry, I wasn't on. Um, like to call the meeting to order. First, I'd like to read this land acknowledgement. The land that we know as Squim was once inhabited solely by the first peoples known as Sklallam people, represented by 3 tribal governments, Lower Elwha Sklallam, Jamestown Sklallam, and Port Gamble Sklallam. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Squim with the same care and consideration the Sklallam tribes has and continues to provide. This acknowledgement is a respect to the Sklallam people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Squim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Squim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protection, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all the powers and perform each and all of the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth or amended by Ordinance 2009-036. So could we have a roll call, please?
Do we have Commissioner Cummings here?
Yes.
Commissioner Fain?
Present.
Commissioner Habel?
Here.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Here.
And Commissioner Mahalik.
Here. Thank you.
And we had a couple people that had asked to be excused.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have some minutes to approve. You've had a chance to look them over, and any comments, corrections, or?
Move to approve the minutes?
All those in favor of approving the minutes from the April 7th meeting, please raise your hand. All right, minutes are approved. So now we get to public comment. We have one person in the audience. Please come up to the podium.
John Worthington Squim. This is comments to the comprehensive plan. I know I was told you're just doing codes or something tonight, but we've had some things happen over the years. One is we filled the irrigation ditches and the alluvium wasn't going, the heavy sediment wasn't going to the irrigation ditches anymore. So it built up the level of the Dungeness River and it caused flooding problems. And we've experienced some here in Squim. So my other issue is that I don't get access to enough silvers and kings. So gradually things have been adding up. And recently the tribe has wanted to put in a fish screen up there to block the East Highland irrigation ditch. And that would be a critical decision for the comprehensive plan because I think those salmon need to find their way down to Bell Creek. I don't think that Bell Creek has enough investment in it. I think that the Jimmy Come Lately science, which I've sent you all, it has this nice little coil. All the logs and all the sediment are kept out. The fine silt runs down through there, and that's spawning. It uses less water. It should be right over here at same concept, but right after Carrie Blake Park. It's perfect. It belongs there. Got to work with the county to make it happen. The East Highland irrigation ditch needs to continue on to, can go right on down to Johnson Creek and just head on out during flooding seasons. You have an obligation under the state comprehensive plan to deal with that flooding. We're in a rain shadow. When we get all this water, it has to have some place to go. And I've spent a lot of time riding my bike up around Bell Creek, and it's just a sick. It just needs to be gouged out. There's no way you can account for all of that flooding, and you can't call it natural because we're in a rain shadow. So we don't invest enough. It's a serious deal. You have to get WASDOT involved. You have to get the feds involved, and we need investment on Bell Creek. Take the excess. We don't have a flood plan. The Dungeness, they're going to put that reservoir in there. There are no flood plan. There's no flood safety. So we need it. And that's Johnson Creek. You already got a big gouge. It's too steep for the salmon to spawn. Certainly silvers and kings aren't going to have much of a shot. Divert that water over there, work with the county, and give us silvers and kings, give us Jimmy come lately science. This business about it being different river to river, no, it's rain shadow. We're in a rain shadow. And the state calls a drought from here to the Hoco. So technically, from Jamestown or Glen all the way to the Hoco is a rain shadow. This should be in everywhere. The only reason it's not is because it's advantageous for property buyback programs to let the water just go anywhere and to sell trees and all that stuff and do like they do at the dungeon at the this is the standard. We paid for it. The county paid for it. The tribe paid, the Jamestown tribe paid for it. And the conservation district paid for it. The Army Corps of Engineers approved it, but yet we only have it in one spot. And I'm just not willing to take, oh, you get 2 silvers this year. Oh, you get 2 silvers this year. Oh, you get 2 kings this year. Just enough of that. We don't have enough king and silver habitat. And I want it. And it should be in your comp plan, and you should be working with the county to make it happen. I've sent you a copy. You're more than welcome to have this copy. I've outlined here where I think the Jimmy Come Lately project should go in the city of Sequim. A lot of it's right in Sequim. It needs a lot of investment. A lot of it is in the county for sure, but that's why you guys need to work together to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. Okay. So next is our comprehensive plan status update. Carla?
Thank you. Planning commissioners, it's relatively short in that we're still waiting to see how our public works consultants are doing on their work. But I did want to note that there's a new date on there. April 30th is when we're supposed to have drafts to the city from our transportation and our sewer consultants. And so once we get that on the 30th, if it is reflective of the changes that have been requested and in an additional review, then once we know we're getting close to a final draft, I'll be able to put together a more detailed schedule. So it's my hope that perhaps by our next planning commission meeting, instead of kind of the month frames that are on the calendar here are correct. It will be within the month, and I'll be able to have some dates for you. So thank you. Thanks again for your continued patience.
Thank you very much. Okay. Looks like Travis is on next.
I am.
Teamwork going on here.
Yeah, well, I'll give Scott a second. Oh, you waved her off, huh? Hey, there we go. Okay, so as a bit of a continuation from our last planning commission meeting where we talked specifically about residential zoning updates, today we're going to cram all the other zoning updates in, and that is by design. I think there's a lot of stuff that the state is pushing for housing specifically, and that it has more direct impacts to how we do residential zoning compared to how we do our commercial and mixed use zoning. But that is going to be the kind of the topic of today. So you can go to the next slide, Scott. So And I hope you appreciate I've used some new pictures this time around. So like,
They're beautiful pictures.
so yeah, kudos to, I believe, the marketing team, or at least that's the folder that I found them in. So either Barb or Patsine or somebody, but yeah, it's a lot of great pictures here, or Google Earth or Google Maps. So I got some from there too. But yeah, so the purpose of tonight's discussion, we're just introducing some minor zoning concepts to talk about what that could mean for SQUIM, specifically in our newly kind of defined or grouped commercial districts, business and employment districts, downtown districts, mixed use districts, other land use districts, and then overlay zones. And before I kind of move too far along, that is in and of itself a bit of a deviation from how the current code is compiled. So in today's code, we have Title 18, Chapter 1820, that is the establishment of our zoning districts, aside from where downtown districts lives in, I believe, 1857, and then 1833 is our business and employment districts. And so then everything else is in 1820. So what I've done is actually thoughtfully broken these apart and then consolidated them into districts that reconcile with what we've established through the comprehensive plan. So instead of it feeling like a bit of a jumbled mess in code, it is consistent across all of our documents. And so our districts are grouped according to their like land use designations in the comp plan. So you can, next slide. So first we'll talk about the commercial districts. Specifically, this is our regional commercial, our highway commercial, and our neighborhood business zones. It's something you'll see that's pretty consistent across all of these is that we're doing updates in the purpose statement of each district that just basically replicates or mirrors the language of the comp plan. The codes are all going to become cleaner, and have clearer and more prescriptive use tables. In today's zoning tables, it is a discretionary definition-based approach to uses, which leads a lot for kind of interpretation or just discretion on the staff's part, or even potentially, if you're a property owner and you just want to look to see what can I do with my property, you've got to be a little savvy at being a code reader in order to figure out what it is that you want to do, or you have to call us or come down and talk to us, which, hey, we're always welcome to chat. But the goal here is to make it easier to understand, administer, and make it just much clearer. And that's across all the zones. So there will be more prescriptive use tables that actually further define the types of uses that are allowed. So I'm excited to get to share those with you guys here in the near future. The bulk and dimensional standards under current zoning, a lot of the bulk and dimensional standards vary based on use type. And so the approach that we're taking now is that the bulk and dimensional standards are going to vary based on zone instead of use type. So it'll be much more straightforward as far as the size of your building, the height of your building, what your setbacks are, and all that, just based on the zone rather than a specific use within that zone. And that's an intentional decision that we've made because we've run into things where there's buildings that combine use types, and then it's a matter of, okay, well, we've got bulk and dimensional standards for two different use types, but they're all housed within the same building. So it just becomes this unnecessary review. I mean, it's easy enough for us to figure out and administer it. It's like, okay, what's the dominant use? And those will be the standards you use. But it's like, why does it have to be that way at all? So really, it's just an effort to clean it up, make it easy to understand, make it easy to administer. And so again, those first 4 bullets there under this commercial districts, they're pretty much the same across the board for all of our districts. So you'll see similar language there. But one of the big things I want to talk about in each of these is just some of the proposed updated uses. And, there's not a lot of these zones are getting major changes into what's allowed, but there are some slight tweaks that we're doing, and some of that's consistent with the future land use map redesignation applications we got from property owners, and then also just as a point of maybe making it clear where maybe something was gray and we're deciding, okay, this use was likely considered under the past definition, so let's just make it clear that these are allowed. So things like eating and drinking establishment clarity. So restaurants in the regional commercial and highway commercial. I think we can get to a point where obviously Applebee's exists in the highway commercial, but it's not clear when you look at the zoning table, like, is that actually allowed? It's like, I think we know it's allowed, but it doesn't outright say that it is. And so just making that connection and making it very clear, like, hey, this is allowed here. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to ask us. This is there. Self-storage is another one that is very murky in today's code. And that may have been intentional, but it just makes it unclear for business owners that own and operate existing self-storage businesses. Can I expand? Can I improve my site? What can I do with my existing business? And so by putting some clarity in self-storage, it allows those owners and potential future landowners that want to do this to know what can and can I not do. And then just fuel dispensing as well, just making that clear where it is and isn't allowed, more so than it is today. Other than those things there, no real major updates to the regional commercial. Highway commercial specifically is getting some updated retail and service uses, personal and professional, and business and employment uses. So you may see instead of being a totally niche auto-oriented zone, there may be the opportunity for light employment type uses, office spaces, things like that are consistent with that location in the city. And then again, no real major updates to the neighborhood business zone. So kind of the impact of that is the district will see some minor updates to uses, specifically in the highway commercial zone, while all three will be modernized for ease of administration. And I'll ask you guys some questions towards the end once I get through all of these. So you can go to the next slide. So one of the districts where we are proposing, some significant change as far as how the uses are administered or are allowed is within our business and employment districts, and that's specifically the Bell Creek Opportunity Area, River Road Opportunity Area, and the HTLI zones. Heavy commercial warehouse is being left pretty much unchanged, but the three that I mentioned previous, BCOA, RROA, and HTLI, they currently live in their own standalone chapter in Title 18 in 1833. They have what I would call it's too prescriptive of a use table. So, this is feedback we also got from Leland to some extent. One of our consultants is when we're updating our use tables, you don't want to get so prescriptive that it doesn't leave any room for flexibility or adaptation. That's what I believe that this current table is it's doing too much. And so what we're doing is we're taking the use tables that we're creating and the formatting of those use tables for all the other zones, and we're going to apply them across the board to all our zoning districts, and that'll have an impact on the use types in these districts specifically, because in addition to uses, in the business and employment districts, there are things like use mix thresholds. And so what that is in the OA, or the economic opportunity areas as they exist today, specifically like the River Road Opportunity Area, there is a requirement that a single use can only occupy 25% of a building footprint. Well, that doesn't exactly encourage a single business entity to come in and build, because it requires them to have 3 other uses to go with them. So really it means that you have to build almost in a strip mall type mentality, or a very large retail footprint, like you think of like a Fred Meyer that has then other adjacent uses. But in order to meet that 25%, you would need to come up with 75% other uses to go with your primary use. So it doesn't encourage an individual developer to come in unless they've got a really a high level of uses that are coming in with them. Like you got to have multiple to go, and that's specific to retail. And so retail uses, it really gets squeezed. And I would just say we do have some strip mall locations that have vacancies. So like, do we really need to encourage and promote more of that type of development, or should we try to get maybe larger individual uses that want to come in and develop pieces of land? In addition, there's some density constraints in these zones for attached housing. We're proposing to just do away with them for now, and to see, hey, residential was identified as part of the Hovey report for the opportunity areas as one of the best and highest uses of the property. And so by having a kind of a residential density cap on these zones, or a requirement that you have 55% minimum commercial developed in them, you're really restricting the type of developer or the type of development that you might see. So right now we're approaching this kind of as a clean slate approach to development. As I mentioned, past studies and zoning restrictions have not resulted in these areas being developed with much success. As you can see by this picture, it's completely vacant today. So by kind of maybe loosening that up a bit, we may see some more interest in development in these areas. And that would be the Bell Creek EOA, River Road EOA, and the HTLIs specifically. Our heavy commercial warehouse zones are pretty well built out already, so there's not a whole lot that'll likely happen to those. And honestly, those zones or that zone in particular is actually shrinking a bit because the city owns a good chunk of it, and those are going to go to public. So anyway, not a lot proposed for heavy commercial warehouse, but some big, I would say some substantial changes to the opportunity areas and the HTLI to hopefully encourage development there. All right, downtown. Again, it's an updated approach. One of the things that we'll still have to talk about is design for the downtown. The current downtown district chapter not only incorporates bulk and dimensional use types, but it also has some design standards specific to the downtown, which I think everyone would agree is important. That the downtown has a very distinguishable identity. So those are things that we're still kind of working out, and how that will be implemented moving forward. But really the big kind of the big takeaway for our downtown is we're consolidating the DMU and the DMU2 into just a single DMU, because the difference between the two of them is one use type. And so if one use type's the only thing that separates them, let's just combine them into one thing. And then also really it's modernizing the approach to it, but it's still allowing us to reinforce the bulk and dimensional standards that make SQUIM's downtown what it is today. So as you may recall, when Carla first got here and she did a meeting with everybody about what types of buildings and how tall do you want your buildings, because one of the first things you do or you hear when you talk about zoning changes in your downtown is it's like, let's go up. Like the place to start is in your downtown. Let's go up, and then as it goes outward, you don't have to have as tall of buildings. Well, I think as we all probably recall, that was not necessarily the conversation that we had. We don't really want the downtown to become this super tall buildings that detract from what we have today. So the proposed height standards are going to stay exactly what they are, which I think some people were surprised to hear that the downtown core would allow you to go to 45 feet today. We're going to leave that exactly the way it is. But if you look at this picture here, none of those buildings are getting anywhere close to 45 feet. And to develop one of these buildings or to redevelop one of these buildings into a 45-foot structure would take a pretty penny. And, I don't know how much people are going to want to do that. And then if we were to allow heights to go crazy in the downtown, you're talking a new development on a vacant lot and then it is just going to stick out like a sore thumb. So those are the things that we talked about in the past. And so again, this is our attempt to, keep the downtown the way it is today. And go ahead. Yeah, what's up?
What is that one use difference between
yeah.
DMU
So-
1 and 2?
And so it's outdoor storage, but it's a very specific like where it is allowed. And it's a kind of a grandfathered thing for Thomas Building Center. So it's not necessarily something that would be allowed as this like sweeping allowance in the rest of the downtown. It's just a consolidating of the two. And then we will put something in there that essentially establishes that use is essential for the existing use that's already using it, but it wouldn't be something that like we wouldn't allow a new Thomas Building Center to pop up like across the street from it, right? So that's thank you for asking that, because that's a good question. But yeah, anyway, the plan there is to keep downtown the way we know and love it as of today. And I think again the height stuff and the different use types, we're going to be able to absorb that and deal with it elsewhere. It doesn't have to happen necessarily in our downtown. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Travis. I did want to just put a pin in the height because we can, while we're proposing to keep the 45 feet as it is, I don't think we'd be opposed if the commission wanted to have a discussion to lower it to 40 or to 35 feet. And so it's 38 in the DMU, and it might make sense to go to 38 to keep it even, to keep a one standard between the downtown districts. And I just want to note, I spent a lot of time in my previous jurisdiction talking about height in the downtown. So I just want to note that and I went out literally with a stick and measured building height. So to give you context, the Gazette building will probably be about 25 to 28 feet. So the current height at 45 feet would be allow for 2 more stories on there. So we'll have lots of time at the end to discuss, but I did actually want to bring that up as something for you guys to think about, because it may be that 45 feet is not, like Travis says, there's plenty of other areas in the city that have a higher height limit that can do that vertical build needs that we have, and it doesn't have to be in downtown.
All right, you can go to the next slide. All right, so mixed use. This picture is in our lifestyle district. I'll admit it was a struggle to find a good picture of mixed use development in Sequim, because it really doesn't exist in the truest sense of mixed use. It's more like adjacent uses, and then there's screening and things between them, so it's hard to get a good good photo that shows that. But anyway, there's not a whole lot is being proposed in here. Again, same kind of cleanup and updates. The CMU and the LD, I think, are acting as they should. So the community mixed use and the lifestyle district, both of those zones are behaving and being developed in a way that makes sense. And so we don't have really any major changes to them that proposed. One that you will see on here is the PRC, which is our planned resort community. So what we are proposing is to actually build out and put some standards to that zone. Because the challenge with it as of today is that it is currently, if you were to develop it, you are developing it to R48 standards, which is not very consistent with this idea of a planned resort community that's been considered since 2007. The comp plan as of today's comp plan considers residential, seasonal home rentals, tourist lodging, and commercial uses that meet the needs of resort visitors and current residents. So the uses that we've proposed and that we've put into this zone are all consistent with that. So we've taken all of the allowed uses under the residential R49 zone, as well as the uses that would be allowed through a planned residential development, which, as you might recall, includes some commercial uses. It's very, it's neighborhood oriented type uses. It's not like wholesale, big box store type uses or medical facility, huge medical facilities. And then also kind of expanded that to include, hotels and motels, because you can't really have a planned resort community without the resort itself. And then also, some multifamily, because if you're going to do bulk or if you're going to do size and scale of a hotel, then, what's the harm in terms of appearance of multifamily as well. And if you're going to do above ground units on top of commercial uses in a true mixed use fashion, that is considered multifamily. So we've put some teeth into the PRC where there currently has not been any. So that is definitely a change. But the overall impact of the mixed use districts is we're modernizing the zoning codes and specifically providing a framework for the PRC that is consistent with what was considered when the zone was originally established and first brought to the city as far back as 2007. So, and we can talk about that in a little bit if you have questions. All right, next. So other land use districts, this is our public open space and agricultural conservancy. And so really the goal behind these districts is you may not have there will be a use table that is very condensed compared to the other districts as far as what types of uses are allowed. Most uses will either be permitted or through a conditional use permit. There won't be any type of development that's just outright allowed without a permit. I think as we've mentioned, like even though they're public, you still have to go get a permit. The bulk and dimensional standards for these types of uses, because a lot of the use types would be done through a conditional use permit process, there may not be any just wholesale or kind of sweeping standards under the current zoning code. When public facilities are proposed, usually it says here's your height limit or as approved through a CUP, and so it is considering that we can exceed maybe some of those bulk and dimensional standards that exist today when there's maybe a known public benefit. But the big point in all of this is that we're not just going to allow something to happen that doesn't take into account what's next door. So a big part of what we will do when these types of properties are proposed to be developed is taking a look at those neighboring properties so that we can be relatively consistent with building height, setback requirements, so that the impact is as minimal as possible, and so they're not feeling constrained or yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Not to derail, I just have a question about the public zone.
Sure.
So we don't currently have a public zone.
Correct.
Am I right? Okay. So with the public zone, if we wanted to build a new fire station or something,
Mhm.
right? Would there be pre-zoned parcels, or are we talking they would? Okay.
We did. We just talked. So in the event so this is why a lot of the public uses are still listed in the use table.
Yeah.
So even if you have a piece of property in, like, say, the city or PUD or whomever acquires that piece of land, but it's not zoned public at the time, there's still a process by which you could move forward. But what we would do is we would, at the earliest convenience through the annual amendment process, we would move that forward through a rezone to get it to P. But yeah, there would still be a process if they were trying to move quicker than that.
So this is a bit of a cautionary tale.
Mhm.
At the county, there was a fire station. I can't remember where it was, but they sold it recently, and they had to go through a rezone process in order to sell it because they weren't using the fire station anymore. Is it
Okay.
more or less difficult to just go for a conditional use permit for public uses if they wanted to build a fire station, just have that under conditional uses for most of the zones? Or I don't know. It's just something to think about.
Sounds like Carla's got an answer for you.
Yeah.
Well, because I've had this experience too. And so this is a double-edged sword of the public zone. And I would say I'm not usually a fan of it, but we actually spent a lot of time as staff talking about it. And there's been requests by other departments to have a public zone. So we've gone ahead and brought that forward to you, for your consideration. You remember that as part of the comp plan process when we've talked about the future land use map. But that's the downside to it, is that if you zone it public, then if they want to sell the property, it would have to go through the annual amendment process to undo it. And so the experience I had in my previous jurisdiction was around parks, and there was a specific park that the city council was considering selling, and the community's like, no, we love our park, and so they tried to they used this as a tool to make it difficult to unwind. So it is the other side of it. So public is probably best used for properties that are intended to stay public and long for long term, and that if there is a school that wants to surplus or fire district that changes their mind, that's one of a cautionary tale we can tell them when they're looking at a piece of property, that because eventually we'll make it public, but if you ever want to sell it for something else, you would have to go through this process. But you're exactly right. So I don't think we have a policy that requires it to be zoned in public. I think we have the we have the public use policies in our land use chapter. So we could take a look at that and see, to provide some of that flexibility. Like I said, we had some city departments that specifically wanted it, but maybe give the opportunity for other public uses to choose whether they want to be in that zone or not. I think that's not a bad idea.
The property that used to house the Squim over there on 5th, I think they sold it to the cable company. Was it public, or was just within a regular zoning for commercial?
Do you know when it was sold?
I don't know if it was sold. I don't know if we were leasing it. This is 8 years ago. I believe the planning department was over there.
Yeah. So if it was, I got you. So over there off of, it is off. You've got your location perfect. So I think the Public Works Department was over there for a little bit too. So if it was just 8 years ago, the public facility zones went away with the most recent comprehensive plan. So like as of 2015, there were no more public facility zones where there used to be, and then that comp plan basically got rid of them. But if you look in the zoning code, it says like if you do the public facility use, it's supposed to then get rezoned to public facilities. So why they undid the zoning when they're required to establish the zoning when new uses for public facilities it never truly made a whole lot of sense. And I think that's why there was frustration with other departments, because, Carrie Blake Park or the treatment facility went from public facility to R48. And then anytime they wanted to do any sort of improvement, they had to come and get a full blown conditional use permit that goes to, the hearings examiner, as opposed to just being maybe an administrative review type project.
Okay.
So
thank you.
And that was, that was kind of the bigger desire that we had with the public zone, was like, if this is already an established use and they need a storage shed for equipment and things like that, like, do we really need to hit them with a conditional use permit, or is there a better way that we could do this? And so this is what we landed on. But no, point is well taken. So really the biggest impact here is better framework for developing or expanding on established park, open space, and AG properties, and not that open space or AG properties will likely experience any sort of expansions, but really it's just our attempt to make it easier for the folks that have already established a public property to get the permits that they need. All right. And lastly, not directly a zone in and of themselves, but overlay zones. So you may recall the manufactured park overlay stuff that happened. Oh gosh, it feels like it was just last year, but maybe it was last year. It was, yeah, it was 2024, 2025. It is in there somewhere. And here we are a third of the way through 2026. So what the big update here is that we have an existing manufactured home park development standards section within Title 18, and then we have the newly adopted manufactured home park overlay zone process chapter that's in Title 18. So not going to propose any changes to that because it was just recently done, but we're just going to consolidate the two of those into a single chapter so that if you want to develop a manufactured home park, here are your standards and here's the process by which you get your overlay recorded. So it's just for manufactured home parks, it's just really a cleanup of how the code reads, and makes it a one-stop shop as opposed to having to jump around. Master plans often require overlays, especially for those that are applying for alternative development standards, where it needs to be indicated like, hey, the underlying zone's not being followed here. We're using a master plan. We need an overlay, either through a rezone or a designation. This chapter is still a work in progress as we kind of work through all the things we're working on as part of the moratorium, and just getting that all taken away or taken care of. The impact here really is just the consolidation of overlays for manufactured home park as well as manufactured home park standards for ease of administration. And then future updates to the master plan chapter will provide the needed clarity on process and zoning allowances based on what the underlying zone might be. So go to the next. So kind of now Q&A for you guys as it relates to the commercial zone. So again, that's our regional, highway, and neighborhood. Any specific uses in these zones that you have concerns about, or that you don't want us to, that you wouldn't want to see in any of those zones? Or I know you can't see what's being proposed in front of you, but it just as a question, as residents and invested community members, anything in those zones that you would not want to see?
I think we need to get it developed.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think what you proposed is really going to help with that. And, it's nice having a little space, but
Yeah.
it could be put to better use.
Yeah. So, and I guess, yeah, because it's a similar question for the business and employment zones. Any concerns with the approach, really? Because it's very similar of just kind of expanding the allowed uses and allowing for market response and potential development. Any concerns?
I applaud this because I think the challenge we've had is we've been kind of restrictive, as you mentioned, and opening it up. Everything that you have taught me about what we do is we provide the opportunity. The market will decide how big of a building or what kind of a business fits the community. It's evolving pretty fast as far as, our entire world. So who knows what type of business is going to be viable 5 years from now. So I just applaud you for opening it up.
I thought I'd make a comment. I was thinking about it as Travis was doing his presentations on the commercial districts and then the business and employment, that and I think maybe, Larry, that you're kind of speaking to it. I hope you are. I hope that you all are seeing that we're trying to take a very even, consistent, methodical approach to the zoning, how we're approaching the zoning ordinance. And so, for example, the commercial didn't have enough specificity. It had a lot of ambiguity that led to interpretations. And depending on who was on staff, that could mean different things. And business employment did too much. It was too restrictive. It had too many standards. And so what Travis did was, the intent was the same. Let's open this up. Let's have a consistent approach to how we're applying the standards, and for the market to respond and provide the framework and the guardrails and all the bulk and dimensional standards that we care about for bulk and scale and compatibility with SQUIM. And so I just wanted to note that, like, we came at it on different ends on both those kind of sets of districts to come to kind of the same place at how we wanted to provide the regulatory scheme around it. So.
Chairman Cummins, we do have I guess a hand up from Nicole. Should I go ahead and allow her?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hi, I was just going to comment that in the downtown district there, where they were talking about the 45-foot height, I think when this plan has all been approved and finalized, this is going to be a great opportunity to market this, because I don't know that too many people are necessarily aware that they could even go up another, to a second story to provide for apartments over retail spaces. And it just seems like such a great opportunity. So I really appreciate the work that has gone into this and the opportunities that it could provide. We're seeing work, like on the Squim Gazette building right now for the workspaces. And I think there's such a great opportunity for a walkable downtown.
Yeah. And I'll ditto that. Like when we first, I think like I mentioned, when Carla first got here and kind of put it all out there, it was like, oh, we can go up to 45 in the downtown. Like most people didn't know, because when you look at it, nobody's doing it. So yeah, it is certainly an opportunity, and we're open to any comments on that. Speaking of the downtown, any issues with the consolidation of DMU 1 and 2, or any other specific downtown priorities you would like to see?
Now, this all seems like it's in alignment with the goals for Squim, and it sounds fantastic. Just need to get the information out there once it's completed.
Thank you.
Sounds like we've had two different conversations about the downtown. One has been the fact that Squim building is not very tall, and that allowing 45 feet might be counter to our small town character. And the second one is that 45 feet seems like a good way to create a walkable downtown that is different from what we characterize as our small town character. So there's a little bit of disconnect there. I'm not sure if the downtown extends to QFC.
So the downtown is, let's see. So the two zones in their entirety, the DD, the downtown districts, is 5th to Brown. And then it's a little sporadic to go north south.
Okay, so
it's essentially to the interchange, and then kind of just past the city building.
So the auto repair that's down there right now, would it be an allowable use?
Which one? The
auto repair shop?
The purple building, or the?
It's kind of dark. No, it's by QFC, across from QFC.
Gotcha. Oh. Is it
Squim Auto?
Is it Evergreen Collision and Towing?
It's past Evergreen.
Past Evergreen.
Yeah,
okay, so
the other way. Even Evergreen.
Yeah. Under the current code, no. Even under today's code, under the updated code, those are auto oriented uses like that. Anything new would have to be fully contained within a building. So kind of one of the things, a couple of the uses that have been allowed in recent years that have kind of pushed the limits, or kind of met that intent but haven't exceeded it, was when the purple building just down the road here was being used for maintenance of post office vehicles. I'm sure you probably saw the post office vehicles there. And then just down here, I think it's called Greased Lightning, but it's a detailing shop. But all the work happens within the building. So as long as that's the case, it's not a big deal. But it's when storage and maintenance and things happen outside, auto sales, like so car lots and things like that, wouldn't be allowed. And that's the same as it is today. Yeah.
So can Evergreen sell?
They could sell, and somebody could, as long as the use was maintained for 12 months, it could stay.
Okay.
At least that's how the non-conforming standards are written today. So like they could vacate it. And as long as somebody came in and started the same use again within 12 months, they could keep it going. Yeah.
So I 100% agree with the statement. We are hearing a little bit of a conflict about building heights. And I will say from the standpoint of it has been there, the market hasn't used it for a reason, and so I'm not opposed to leaving it there. I'm not opposed to taking it away and reducing it. But I think, in the spirit of what you've done here, which is to allow and let the market say X, Y, Z. I don't see anybody coming and rushing in to do a 45-foot building. But if they did, it would stand out, and it may be transformational over time. If they did a 45-foot building down where you're just talking about, down at the far end by QFC, would it even stand out? I don't know. Certainly the hotel that's up at the top of the hill is more than 45 feet, right? And so I'll just say, I think my personal opinion is punt this to the council, because I think this is a council kind of like 45, leave it or go. That's just my vote. I could go either way, honestly.
Eileen, I'm sorry, go ahead. I wanted to provide a little bit of thoughts about the height, and I think you guys can definitely noodle on it. You don't have to we want to hear your thoughts today, and you'll get it back in front of you during our process when you'll actually see a number. Yes, so multi-story buildings are expensive to build. The reason why we haven't seen one here in downtown is because they're expensive to build, and so in much larger jurisdictions, the way they're penciling out is if they're almost fully residential, meaning not even having commercial on the first floor, or a multifamily tax exemption, or MFTE. If you've heard that term, that's a program that the city has not adopted, but it is a tax deferral. It's a tax deferral for the property owner, and it's a tax dispersion, or it's a tax shift. I'm sorry, that's the right word, for the rest of the community. The taxes don't go away. They just get shifted to other property owners, and it's an incentive for multifamily vertical buildings, and the MFTE program has been used very successfully in many downtowns. In fact, I did some work a couple of years ago with the city of Everett, and all of their multifamily buildings in downtown Everett was because of the MFTE program. That's what made it pencil. So we don't have either of that program, and we don't have the first floor is required to be commercial, right? For downtown. Front on Washington. Okay. Yep. So here's what I would say about the building height. You are right that if the other thing I wanted to say first is that while I know it's an interesting and really encouraging thought to say, okay, taking a look at some of our downtown buildings that are there, adding on like an additional floor or 2 floors for residential, seems like that would be a good approach. Practically speaking, it doesn't work because of building code. So these buildings are too old that it wouldn't be financially feasible for a developer to build on top of an existing structure. So they would need to buy the building and demo it and start afresh. So what you would get if we were to get anything, a new building, it would be a new building. And then the 45 feet would be about 4 stories, maybe 5 stories with a flat roof. And so it would be transformative for the downtown. And I guess I'm just going to ask you to kind of noodle on this because, again, I'm going to impose a little bit of my previous jurisdiction because I spent a lot of time talking with Planning Commission and thinking about building height in downtown. And after years of conversation, we landed at 35 feet. And if you're ever in Paulsbo, go downtown. There's new buildings down there, and they are all at 35 feet. That's 3 stories. And the compromise that we made to keep it at that 35-foot scale, 35-foot height was to allow residential on the first floor. So instead, we removed the requirement for commercial on the first floor and allowed for what we call a mixed flexible use space, where the first floor has to be built to commercial building code standards, but could be used for residential, and letting the market decide what could happen on that first floor. And what I learned from talking to developers is that it's much easier to go from a commercial use to a residential use if you build a building purely to residential multifamily building code. You can never go to commercial. So we wanted to preserve the ability to have a commercial use on the first floor, but not require it. And that's where we recommended then the commercial building code to allow for them that term flexible use first floor. So again, just speaking in the context of my previous jurisdiction in Paulsbo, three-story building, and depending, 3-story buildings about 35 feet. If we went to 40 with a flat roof, if we did 40 feet, it gives a little bit of ability for kind of a little bit of roof treatment. It's not going to be a very peaked roof, but you have a little bit more 5 feet. So you could say 35 feet for stories, that additional feet for, kind of rooftop treatment. But that also is a trade-off. If you keep it at a lower height, then you are agreeing that you can have flat roofs. And honestly, with our design standards, we can make flat roofs look very nice because you don't actually see the top of the roofs because you were going to have treatment around that at the roof cap is what we call it. So I think it's just things to think about. 45 feet, which is, again, on the books, it's been here, nobody's used it. That would clearly be a 4-story building easily.
So looking across the street from the Squim Gazette over at A1 Auto, and that building, it's taller than the ones across the streets. That's not 45 feet either, but it's got apartments on top.
I don't think we have anything more than just 2 stories.
Okay.
So, I mean, honestly, just looking across at the building here that has like Hurricane and everything with its super peaked roof, that's probably one of the biggest buildings we have in the downtown. So,
that and all the building height, we did know, and this came out of our conversations with you and with the city council, is that we want to be thoughtful to keep the granary as our tall landmark, our landmark for the Washington Avenue, and 45 feet would not block it in the sense that it's, I think, what was it, I feel like 80 feet. I think it's 85, 80, between 60 and 80, do you remember? But it's definitely taller than 50 feet. But depending on, once we get to that height limit at 45 or 50 feet along Washington, like in particular areas of it, it might block it. And so then you start getting into, are we going to now look at different segments of the street and make sure that we're keeping kind of that visual line open? And I'm not suggesting that we're thinking that way. I'm just saying that once a tall building comes in, these are the questions that you're going to start asking. And I'm just saying that from experience.
I think it's not only a question we would ask, I think it's a question that the residents would ask.
totally.
If you were to build a 45-foot building right now and take out one of these buildings across the street, I think you'd have quite an uproar.
Sure.
And legally, it could be done. They could purchase it, they could demolish it, and they could rebuild and modernize that area. But it changes the whole character of that corridor.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's a big consideration.
It is.
And knowing that 45 feet is in there when you didn't even have a fire truck ladder to go up to 45 feet is kind of interesting because that would keep it lower than the 45.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I did not make any changes to maximum heights in any of these zones other than what was already on the books. So even in some of the zones where, you had use types that maybe were capped at 35, but then another use type went up to 60. So like the max height in that zone would be 60. And so like for the downtown, DMU is 38. I left it 38. DC is 45. I left it 45. Based on all the conversations we had, there was no need to go up any higher. And if anything, there's a conversation, like Carla said, to be had about maybe coming down to keep character. But yeah, I mean, that's why we're here today to have those conversations. And then ultimately, if we just kind of like Larry said, let it be a council decision, then it's a council decision. But as of what I've proposed or written in my drafts, nothing would exceed the height limits that we have today. So I have to imagine it was probably done with the updated comp plan. So yeah. Yeah.
The downtown plan. Go ahead, Alex.
During the open forum at Kerry Blake, I remember one of the developers said there's no way to make multi-level residential work without 4 floors or something like that. And yet, I guess, well, if they build the first floor as to commercial standards, has there been any interest shown in someone actually doing that? Not that it would create affordable housing, because they wouldn't be probably, but
The only new interest we have, and this is more like a conversation at the counter than anything else, is still limited to like a 2-story building, where they are going to have office spaces down below, and then I think I don't even know if it was like 20 to 30 apartments maybe above. So it's a fairly large building, but it wasn't going to be, it's not going to be a 3 to 4 story. And yeah, I mean, that's what we heard is you need 4 stories or underground parking essentially, so that you can maximize your above ground with units. So, and that's underground parking's another challenge in and of itself. So that doesn't exactly make the units more affordable. So, yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, but I would say, there are other zones that would allow you to do the 4 stories. Like it doesn't have to be in downtown. The CMU would be able to do that. The OA properties that were previously restricted to needing to require, minimum amounts of commercial are going to be loosened up so that there's added flexibility for residential multifamily uses there, that could have some higher or some taller height buildings, specifically the Bell Creek, because of where it's situated down kind of in the hole. It kind of makes sense that they could go up a little bit higher and it won't have a visual impact on surrounding properties. So I mean, I think there's going to be more of an abundance of properties available for that type of use that don't have to happen in our downtown. And so it'll be, I mean, honestly, it's kind of, for me, it's a bit exciting to see like what's going to happen. And I'm kind of anxious to see, will what we do here today spur growth the way that we think it will? So, only time will tell. Yeah.
I guess if I may, I'm going to just go ahead and make a recommendation for you to think about again. You don't have to make any decisions tonight, although if you like it, we can put it, we can change it. Is I think I would recommend going to 38 feet for the downtown. It's consistent with the other DMU height. It provides for 3 stories, or even and we can consider the flexible use for the first floor, so that a developer could realize 3 full floors of residential units. And I think the 38 feet provides a market that's appropriate for SQUIM and appropriate for the downtown, I guess I would say. So that would be my recommendation. Again, if you guys want to kick it around a little bit today, we can. If not, we'll keep it at the 45 feet as it currently is, and we can talk about it when we bring the full zoning ordinance to you.
If I may, in some other places around the United States, they do have such as like a 3-story or 38 feet, whichever's lowest. So it's one of those things that you got double coverage. It's like, because sometimes they want to do some decorative things, but it still can't go over that certain height, but they have the parapets around covering like air conditioning and different things. So you can add something like that as well.
I was just going to suggest to ponder, but if somebody wants to make a motion or something.
It's not really on the agenda.
Yeah,
for
no
motion,
motion
so,
necessary. But if it's the general consensus, then when we put the draft together, like that can be the direction that we go in, and then it just we can have further conversation once you actually have the.
I like the allowance of the 3 floors, or it gives a little leeway, and we're only talking about a difference of 7 feet then, and we have the 45 plus if we want someone to come in these other areas to do a modern development for mixed use where they could actually create a walkable area for employment and for housing. That'd be great to see.
Ready to
Okay,
move on?
without taking a vote, it sounds like we have
Huh?
kind of if I see head nods, and we're kind of iffy. Okay.
Okay.
We'll leave it the way that it is, and we'll have the conversation. All right. Moving to mixed use. So again, this is the CMU, the lifestyle, and the PRC. Any concerns with the planned resort community direction that we're going in to put some actual muscle or some meat on the bone for that specific zone? Go ahead.
I have no reservation. Have you previewed this at all with either party that's considering developing here?
We have not had lengthy discussions with them about it. Obviously, we know what they would like to do based on the application that was submitted. And so what they proposed was just uses that were consistent with the R48 plus what was allowed through a planned residential development. So what we've done in this zone is, something similar, but then kind of built it out a little bit more in terms of, what the standards could be. And because as of right now, if we were going R48, that zone would have severe height restrictions for the types of uses that, you would think of when you think of a planned resort community. So this was just our attempt again, like to actually to realize the zone that has been considered for the better part of,
So you're
18
directionally,
years.
this recommendation is kind of directionally consistent. It might be different with what they're anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, I think where we started from was what was considered in the comp plan and what
Right.
was talked about in the comp plan, coupled with what was already allowed in what is currently its underlying zone of the R48, plus what would be allowed through a planned residential development.
Mhm.
So it's not that far away from what could be done today. It's just kind of making it more clear.
Okay, that's I kind of wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
Yep.
that sounds great to me.
Yeah, so it was a combination of comp plan considerations versus what they could already possibly do today, and then just putting that into a use table.
But just for clarity purposes, we're taking into consideration all comments from all entities. We're not modifying a zone to specifically satisfy an entity.
No.
Thank you.
Yep. Other than those that applied for a redesignation through the process, right? Like, all right. So any issues with what we're doing for the bulk and dimensional standards under other land use? The only other option would be to kind of at least put minimum standards in place and say something to the effect of uses that want to exceed these minimums could apply for a conditional use permit or an administrative conditional use. Then that at least puts a numeric standard as the baseline, and then they could go up as they need to. Otherwise, it is a bit of a, what's the need, and we review it accordingly. So I'm happy to kind of do either. This was kind of one of those things that came to me in the last couple weeks leading up to this meeting. I didn't really put anything here because these uses are generally kind of special compared to other use types because we've got public facilities and things like that. So I didn't necessarily give a lot of thought to bulk and dimensional standards leading up to this, but I'm happy to throw some minimums in there if we think it's necessary, or is the direction of kind of see what they need and condition accordingly. All right. And then any questions on the approach to overlay zones to consolidate okay, cool. All right, well, that's any other questions? You can go last slide. Oh, actually, sorry. I always forget about this slide. I get so excited. You can go to the next one. Yeah. Next steps, because there's more to come. So on the 5th, we will be talking about, and I actually did want to bring this up because a lot of the things we're talking about with these zoning changes and these allowed use types and things, it's all great for development, but how it is felt and how it impacts your adjacent neighbor is going to be governed by what we're going to talk about on the 5th, which is site planning, design review, off-street parking improvements, and open space and landscaping standards. That's what you're actually going to visually see and feel more so maybe than the use type itself. And so I would say that those 4 section or chapters right there are probably some of the biggest updates that we've done, I think. SQUIM has not had landscaping standards since, 2009. It might even be prior to that. It might even be the 90s. I mean, there are landscaping standards, but not in the true form. Like if you go into the code today to this place that says landscaping standards, it's repealed. And then there's an ordinance that you're supposed to look at, and I'm pretty sure it is from the 90s. And then there's landscaping requirements littered throughout in different types of developments and things, but there's not any sort of concise, here's the standards for landscaping in SQUIM, and we're going to do that. So we're gonna talk about open space as well, as those 2 things alone have been topics of conversation with developers since I've been here, of how much open space is needed to be set aside, how much landscaping do I have to provide, because not all of that's free, right? Then it's land that doesn't get used. But and then design review, I could probably write a book about our implementing and trying to use our design review code. So the key difference there is we're separating design review out into 2 processes, site planning and design review. Our current design review incorporates them under 1 process, but then restricts site planning to when there's new buildings only. And so then we don't get to use our site planning standards unless there's a new building being built. And it's really frustrating and a lot of fun. And so what we're doing now is we're actually going to have a process for improving sites through site planning, even if there's no building being proposed. And then design review will be actually used how it's supposed to be, and that is more for architectural design and building design, and how that interacts with the site. But then site planning will decide how the rest of it works. So, and then off-street parking, of course. And then on the 19th, we'll do everything else. Everything else that's being updated, I should say. So things like essential public facilities is being overhauled just to really mirror the RCW standards. They define them, they say what they are. We're going to just say, okay. And I think our current essential public facilities code is far, it has too much, it oversteps what we're truly allowed to do with essential public facilities. And so we are going to get it into compliance with when or where and how these uses are allowed to be cited. Daycare facilities is another one that the state has pretty much written the book on. And so we are just going to take that and put it into code. Home occupation permits is just an update and process. CUP, again, kind of just an update and process. And then TUPs is another one that has evolved in recent, well, I could say years, but it's really months, where what used to be handled under special event permits on private property, things like that are now going to fall more under the direction of temporary use permits. And so we are updating that for just ease of admission and for different use types that want to pop up on private property that maybe doesn't meet the needs of a special event permit, but is more of just a temporary commercial entity. And then no meeting necessary. I did want to at least highlight these ones. And so these are all going to also have new homes in our full Title 18 update, but I, at this time, have not updated our nonconforming standards, our sign code. Transitory accommodations is our religious shelters that you just saw in 1821. Wireless communications facilities, that is a beast of a code that I'll look at another time. ADUs we did in 1821, so no need to touch those. That'll just get brought over. Mobile food vendors has been updated in the last few years, so no real need to update that. Annexations and variances. I will say annexations, maybe Scott and Carla want to update that while we're here, but I have not touched it, but they are dealing with annexations almost daily as of right now. So there could be an opportunity to update that one. But as of right now, no real need to talk about those ones because I have not proposed any changes to them. They will just come over as they are. Any last questions on next steps? Nope.
Looks good.
All right. Oh, Larry, you good?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
It's a little on topic, but it's a little off.
This is the best.
So once a year, there's like helicopters flying in and landing in the middle of a field, which I go to. And does that take a city permit? I mean,
Yes.
that's not a use, right?
Right. So
It's
that one, in its history has gotten a special event permit.
right.
We have not, I don't think we have, and I really think it'll still get a special event permit even after this update, just because of the impact it has on public streets and all of that, even though it is pretty well tucked away. I think because of the public impact, it'll still be done through a special event permit. And because while it's not a TUP in the sense of it's not somebody popping up and selling, although there are vendors and things. It's not a business entity, so to speak, trying to locate in a parking lot and sell things on a temporary basis or a temporary parking lot or something like that. It's an event. So I think in that sense, my hope is that one stays a special event permit because I think that's where it makes the most sense. So, but yes, historically they have gotten a permit for that.
Thank you.
And if it's the property that I'm thinking of, they also have all their FAA approval and everything as well. So if anybody's wondering, they do have the proper credentials to do what they do, even not through the city. So for whatever it's worth.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much once again. And the pictures were very good.
Hey, I had to change it up a little bit. So thank you.
All right. So we have director's report. You have some
I do.
good things.
Yeah, I have a couple. I wanted to note that I joined Eileen on Friday with the League of Women Voters as their guest speaker. And so she spoke about Planning Commission and being on the Planning Commission. And shared with what land use laws are, that we all have to, that how it all gets incorporated, and kind of the peeling back the mystery of what we do and how we do it in the DCD department, with basically all the state statutes that we're responsible for implementing. The two things I mostly wanted to share with you is that we have a shoreline permit, and the Planning Commission may not know, but you are the review authority for shoreline permits. The recommending body. Yeah, thank you. So we have a shoreline conditional use permit. We just got it in. Travis is trying to untangle it a bit, and it is the conditional use permit does have to go to ecology for final review and approval, but you will see that at some point. So it will be, it's the only like current planning project that the Planning Commission actually looks at. So, and it won't be for a couple months, but I just thought I would note that you might see that coming your way here sometime, maybe late summer. The other thing that you may not have ever seen that I just learned that you do look at is utility local improvement districts. And I haven't checked the code to see exactly what your role is, but I've been told that you have a role in it. And I just want to speak a little bit about why, what a ULID is. It was not used that frequently anymore, but it is in the context of an annexation that we're working on. And you may have read in the paper, heard about Flores Acres and the Flores Acres neighborhood, which is just down the street a little bit. They are they have a failing septic they have a failing septic that needs to go on sewer. They're also taking advantage of a grant or a loan that was received to hook into city water. So they're going to get fully hooked into city utilities. Scott is processing an annexation right now for them to come into the city. And while the county and the city were very successful in getting kind of a suite of grants to help pay for all these things, there is a bit of just a bit left that the homeowners have to pay, and they're going to pay through the utility local improvement district. So what that is that's establishing a geographic area that will have a special assessment put on them, and then as part of their rates that they pay to the city for water and sewer, they'll have this additional assessment. So again, that's kind of 30,000 foot level of the ULID. The Public Works Department's working on the ULID part. Scott and I are working on the annexation part. Annexation goes to city council, ULID goes to you guys, then they'll join back up together, and then it goes to the county boundary review board. So anyway, that actually will come to you, I think, in the next month or so. The Public Works is trying to get their process aligned, but I thought I'd give you that heads up so that when you see an agenda with a Flores Acres ULID, you're not like, what in the world is this? So yeah, and we'll have we'll make sure that Public Works has a staff report that kind of speaks to what your responsibility is in it. So that's my report. Any questions on shoreline or ULIDs?
I think we'll find out a whole
Yeah.
lot more later.
You will, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for the good of the order, anybody have anything?
Oh, I do. I'm curious. On this document that was presented to us, have you all seen it by any chance? This, in our floodplain plans and our interface with FEMA and things like this thing, he says there's been some buy-in to it from entities, but do we connect any of our irrigation with the county through the comprehensive plan, or is it through our public works planning on their waterways and those structures?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it's definitely not, because the irrigation districts are their own entity. And I think it really gets into a conversation about like water rights and all the things and how much they get to draw. And anyway, there is a lot there, but I don't know how much is there for us to really.
But as far as like our stormwater and those things, when we tie into the ditches and where the water is going, and being that we're in the middle of the county and then we drain out into the sound, how do we interface with the county on any of our impacts to that? Do we work through their comprehensive plan, or do we look at it through our public works plan?
I believe, I think this is a good question. I took some notes down from his comments that we can follow up. I'm pretty sure that most of the city drains to Bell Creek, and then Bell Creek drains to Squim Bay. So that as far as stormwater goes, I think that our stormwater does not commingle with irrigation ditches. So it is primarily Bell Creek is our primary stormwater collector body. And I know, I was gonna say, I'm just thinking there might be some portions on the eastern part of the city, but I think I remember the city engineer making a statement that eventually all stormwater finds its way to Bell Creek, and then that has the natural discharge at Squim Bay.
Other than the Castlery Creek. Now Castlery Creek, we also drain into.
Okay.
And
Into
like
Johnson,
the apartments and that stuff,
Okay.
that drains back through that. But a lot of what he's talking about seems like, and I'm not sure about Bell Creek, but it seems like it's private property. Like you said, the irrigation that's controlled by another entity. It doesn't seem like, other than being cognizant of the stormwater issues. And I know we've got a stormwater plan, but that all goes through Public Works.
Yeah, and in as part of our CAO, our critical areas ordinance, we have a critical aquifer recharge area and designation on, it's probably 50 to 60, maybe even 75% of the city, where we have to give special consideration to, stormwater and how it's dealt with on new development and so I mean there's a role that we play, but it's probably a really good question for Nick, our city engineer, because he explained it to me once and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so I think he could probably give us an explanation too if it was ever warranted. But I do recall it has to do with water rights and what we can draw and how it all interacts. He could explain it to us like we were 5, and it might make more sense. So
Okay, thank you.
I think part of the comments I also heard were about ecology and salmon. And I think the state took care of many of those streams recently that were actually salmon runs, like Johnson Creek. They redid, the state paid to redo a lot of those.
With the fish passages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I think look it up, but I know that we have addressed stormwater like you do. And I think it was, I appreciate the comments, but
I mean, it would be, and he's not wrong, it would take a significant effort to, I think, get Bell Creek to be kind of what he's talking about. It would take significant investment because, like Carla said, it is one of our main stormwater discharges, and I'm not entirely sure it's treated in every location, right? So
yeah. I know that
there's a report. The county has a report somewhere. I've looked at it once, and it's always a struggle to find it again. That actually talks about the various fish like blockages where it's actually impassable. That basically render
Bell Creek has to pass outside the city, has to pass under Schmuck Road.
Yeah,
and so and I know the county just dug out the ditch along Schmuck Road to kind of open that up a little bit, but there's going to be a culvert under Schmuck Road to get
Yeah.
back out to the,
And as soon as it gets into there, past the park in the city limits, it goes under the road.
Yeah.
It goes under the road twice, and then it goes under the highway. So like, I mean,
right.
as it exists in the city, it may be a challenge for fish to ever make it that far.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? I want to thank Carla that her presentation at the League of Women Voters was amazing. Everybody was just like, oh, and there was like 30, 40 people in there. And everybody that walked, I didn't know what the planning department did. I didn't know the history. And so I suspect all your good words have went all over our little community. So thank you.
You're welcome. I know I remember you telling me you've planted some seeds today, and I think that I'm hoping for that to be true, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding that there isn't. I don't have a magic wand. Our department doesn't just make arbitrary and capricious decisions. The Planning Commission has an important role. The city council, our policy makers, the hearing examiner is an attorney that runs proper procedures in public hearings. And I just think that there's a lot of things that we do right that, people just don't know. So I appreciated your comment, because I've been thinking about this Friday, like the little seeds. I mean, League of Women Voters are civically minded people who are interested in continuing education and wanting to understand the complexities of many things. And so I just appreciated the opportunity.
Yeah, they know people. Okay, we're ready to adjourn. Oh,
I guess I could make one more comment. There was a national call for May Day to be a day of national action. No buying, no shopping, no school. And so the Indivisible SQUIM Coordinating Committee met to see what they would do on May 1st. And in deference to it being the first day of the irrigation festival, they're going to advise everyone, if you want to go somewhere to protest, go to Port Townsend or Port Angeles. And by all means, don't discourage anything here in SQUIM. And as much as you can, patronize local businesses the next day.
good job.
So anyway, it was a tough fought thing. I'm not on that committee,
Yeah, no,
but
the city
anyway.
appreciates that.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to adjourn, Karen.
I make a move, we adjourn.
Second. Alex, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. See you next meeting.
Everyone knows, but Emily had her baby. That's why Scott's pinch hitting. Did a great job. Thank you, Scott. So, oh yeah, no, the name of the baby's Emerson.